So we are truly honored to have with us a very special individual, close friend of mine, actually, known for many years. I take pleasure in being one of his friends. We have with us Rabbi, Chaplain, Michoel Harari, who is not only an accomplished educator, is actually a teacher of in the school here in the Lubavitch school in Miami, but and he taught some of my kids. But in addition to being an accomplished educator, he also runs a camp every year called the Camp Yeshiva Outdoor Adventure. And that takes boys into the wilderness for weeks at a time. And this is no joke. This is not a small thing. This is serious living life in the wilderness. I wonder if they've ever encountered any wild animals there, but I'm guessing they probably do have some interesting. And I know they once got snowed in somewhere for like days, 2 days snowed in, and who knows where. Like they probably had no connection to the world for those days. So we have a lot of interesting stories coming, but that's really not even Chaplain Harari's claim to fame. His real claim to fame is what he's up to now, and that is that he is a U.S. Army chaplain, and he's got a whole list of things that that go together with his name. But unfortunately, I don't even understand. I don't know how to even read them because you have to be in the Army. Deployed 3 times, 1 to 229 attack, reconnaissance battalion, and 1 to 16th Infantry, Iron Rangers. Anyway, I'll let him tell us a little about all that. And with no further ado, Rabbi Chaplain Michoel Harari.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Smith. Chanukah Sameach, everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here with you and awake here with you because Borei Olam, God arranges everything in the most amazing ways. I wasn't meant to be here right now. I actually just redeployed from Europe. We were in the Black Sea region for the past 5 months on a rotational deployment. In short, though, it's very, very lovely to be speaking to you from here, Fort Riley, Kansas, where I live with my family, my wife and kids, and our horse. Anyway, so Rabbi Smith, there's much that we could go through. We have some things on the parasha. We have some things for Hanukkah we could speak about. I know I'm not sure, is anyone here, you could raise your hand or do one of those emoji hand raising things, and I'll know. Anyone here prior service or served in the military before? All right, I see 2. Wow. So first of all, Mr. Resnick and Mr. Levy, thank you for your service. Did you serve here in Eretz Yisrael?
I served in Israel.
Okay. And Mr. Levy also?
Yes, I served here. I served in Korea, in Texas.
Roger. So you guys will understand some of the things I'm saying a little bit more. So if you'll maybe be able to help me translate some of the things that we'll go through. So in short, my name's Michoel Harari. I'm from Surfside, Florida. It used to be a small little town where Rabbi Smith's grandmother used to live in the Balmoral. I think it was 4T or 4D. So I know them for a very long time. I grew up in South Florida. I went to Hebrew Academy of Greater Miami as well as Landau in Miami Beach. After that, I learned in yeshivas in California, Montreal, Australia, and became a rabbi. Got ordained in Sydney, Australia. Spent 1.5 years directing an orphanage in Dnepropetrovsk, Ukraine. And then after that, was teaching both in New York and in South Florida. Things that we do in the summers, we do run a wilderness program for scouts, for students that are 15, 16, where we'll go out for four weeks backpacking, mountaineering, sailing and things like that. And within all these adventures and places, it's so beautiful to see, and more for me, more beautiful for the students to see how God does everything and tailor makes everything, just has things work out incredibly. So we'll start the past few weeks, Parshiot, that we were going through, were very, very significant as I was deployed during this time and speaking to the other 800 soldiers that were in our unit. And I'll probably throw in things here and there. I don't have a very direct keynotes that I'm following. If there's anything that you're interested in or anything you need me to flesh out a little bit more, it'll be my pleasure. So our unit, 116 Infantry, First Armored Brigade Combat Team, we're a mechanized infantry unit here in Fort Riley, Kansas. We deployed to Europe in June, July, and many, many different experiences there. Some very, very positive, and some that kind of remind you where you are. We were in the middle of the night. For those of you who've deployed places, you know how you hurry up and wait. The military will send you somewhere. You're carrying your bags. You have 130 pounds of things and equipment that you're bringing with you because you have a checklist of everything you need to bring. Then you're waiting on a tarmac. Maybe, you know, in Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to go as far for a deployment. My cousins that are in the military right now in Eretz Yisrael and that are retired, they said, you know, I was speaking to them while I was deployed, and they said, it's funny. They said, you know, whenever I was deployed, it was only 40 minutes from home, maybe 45 minutes. They said I was in the north, or they went out to the east, or they're in the West Bank or whatever. But they said, you know, we're just a drive away. They didn't really, it was difficult for them to wrap their heads around the idea of going away from home, going away from your family for 9 months or more, and being deployed to another region and just being there working with those areas, you know, those units. We obviously in the United States military, we're a voluntary force. In the United States military, you might find it very interesting that there are far more, there's almost by percentage, if in the United States there's about 1% of our population is Jewish, in the United States military, there's about 2% of the US military is Jewish. So as you see, there's a far, far greater percentage of Jews volunteering to serve here in the Air Force, in the Army, in the Marine Corps, in the Navy. And it's just an interesting thing. And when you see whether individuals are Jewish or not, you see these volunteers boarding a plane at 02 a.m., 2 in the morning. They're boarding a plane to fly away. Some of them just got married. Some of them, there's a soldier that I was with that by the time he gets home, his son will be a year old, and he would have never seen him yet. So just different trials and challenges, though, to be around these individuals, it is in itself inspiring. So I was inspired. I get on my plane. I landed in Nuremberg, Germany, and on the bus that picked me up, you know, nice bus, comfortable bus. I fold down the food tray, right, to go put whatever provisions I brought with me. I fold down the food tray, and I see a swastika drawn into the back of the seat. And like I said, as going from inspiration, I'm just looking on my phone over down here for a moment, because I'll show you. I think you can see it. So that's the food tray on the back of the plane. And so that was the first thing I saw when I landed in Nuremberg, Germany, and got on a bus. And kind of was a little reminder of saying reminding who you are and where you are, and what happened here not too long ago, and that we see these things again. So I think it very much ties into Hanukkah, and everything else we could chat about is that we have to be that light. We see on Hanukkah that every single day we have more light than the previous day. And there's different halachos that you could go through. There's different laws about lighting. If your yaitza, if it fulfills your obligation to light the same number one night after another. But a lesson that we see of the greatest thing we could do is we have to be more bright tomorrow than we were today. Every single thing we do, there needs to be a step up. Stagnation, if we're doing the same today as we were yesterday, we're failing ourselves, we're failing those around us. So to make sure whatever it is that we're doing, that we're always stepping up. But jumping into the parsha that I was saying, and I was speaking to our soldiers about, we have the parsha of Vayetze, right? That talks, he departed, but Yaakov leaving, going somewhere. Yes, Robert, you're waving. Robert, I would love to hear you, sir. I just cannot hear you because you're muted.
Thank you. Was that a military bus or a civilian bus you boarded?
That was a contracted bus. That was just I'm not sure if that was their buses. It was who we were given to transport us from Nuremberg to MK Air Base, Romania.
Okay, I just wanted to know under whose providence the bus was because of the swastika.
Yes, Rab David.
Yeah, don't feel too bad because I got the same swastika from my coworkers in Brooklyn, New York,
So
in a hospital.
wow. So in no way. So I like how you said, don't let it make you feel bad. Something that our soldiers know very well and that is nothing can make you happy. Nothing can make you sad. It's what you decide to do with it. So by seeing it, you have two different directions you go, right? You can be sad, you could be upset, and you could go down. Or, well, personally, we always have a knife on us, so I carved it out. I removed it from the back of the bus just by removing some of the plastic. But when we see something that challenges us, as we see in Hanukkah, we're supposed to step up, not down. We're supposed to increase what we do. Mrs. Resnick or Miss
Yes.
Resnick.
The first time I ever took my son at 8 years old to Washington, D.C. to see the Lincoln Memorial, there was a swastika carved in the bus stop that we got off on. And I had to explain to him. He asked me, Mom, why is that there in Washington, D.C.? And I had to come up with an explanation.
Wow. So, I mean, if one of my soldiers or someone sees that, or a Jewish individual says, what does that mean? Why is that there? It's there for us to step up our game, for us to be even more of who we are. And as it says, in Ner Lahar, to be a lamplighter for the nation, be a positive influence on those around us. You know what? I digress, and I'm going to go into a short story that took place about 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, at Fort Lewis, Washington. I was with the 229 Attack Reconnaissance Battalion. It's an aviation asset, but it's a forward attack reconnaissance unit. I deployed with them twice, and some of the details, since I see this is recording, I'm going to have to change, obviously, names of individuals, but I returned back from a place called NTC, the National Training Center. It's at Fort Irwin, California. I see Mr. Levy is nodding his head and knows it. You either know it's for good reason. Well, I don't know anyone who knows it's for good reasons. It's either very cold and you're there in the winter in the desert, or it's very hot. It's not far from Death Valley, California. And there's an area known as the Box, which is 60 kilometers by 50 kilometers, and a far larger area where you go into, and it's basically war games. And you have different soldiers that are strapped up in what's called there's a specific sensors you put on your vests, sensors you put on your helmet, on your vehicles, and it's almost like a multi-million-dollar laser tag game, where when you shoot a rifle, it sends a laser beam to what you shot at. And depending how many times or what weapon system you're using against something else, that will register a kill. And if it does, that person goes down, and they'll have, an individual will call a 9-line, which is a medical evac, where they'll say what's there, and you'll actually have a helicopter fly in and evacuate you to a PHA, prisoner holding area. And you better hope you have a sleeping bag or something with you, because when someone dies in the box, it's very likely they're just dropped off in a detention area, which is just an open walled hangar somewhere in the desert for a couple days until you regenerate and a unit can pretty much get new soldiers, and then you would be reinstituted to your unit, but you would just be sent there with nothing. So anyways, I'm coming back from NTC, the National Training Center, and I'm on a bus, probably, I don't know why Army buses take so long. I know I drive these places and it doesn't take that long, but going from the NTC to Fort Lewis, Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington, could be, up to a 30-hour bus ride. So we're on the bus, and I get a phone call from our branch manager, and they asked me if my bags are packed. Said, hey, Captain Harari, are your bags packed? And I was like, Roger that, sir. I'm on a bus from NTC. Obviously, my bags are packed. So he's like, all right, great. Once you get to where you're going, which is home, I said about 72 hours after that, you'll be boarding a flight to Special Forces Base Fort Magsaysay in the Philippines. So I was like, all right, Roger that. I put it down in my notes of what I need to get in order. And obviously I call my wife, who's home with our 6 kids. And so my wife, I asked her very candidly, we're in Washington State at the time, we're at Fort Lewis. She's from Southern California, by the way, from a place called Agoura Hills, if you know it. And I say, dear, and she's very excited because I'm coming home after being away over a month. I was like, dear, would you like to go to your family? Would you like to go to your family for Pesach? And she's like, sure. What's the catch? I said, honey, no catch. I said, would you like to go? She said, where are you going? And I said, I'll be going elsewhere. And I said, is that all right? Because obviously it was somewhere in between being voluntold and yeah, somewhere in between. I'm kind of volunteering and I'm kind of being told to go there. But I wasn't pushing back on it. And she said, you go where you're needed. And I said, all right, Roger that. I go to Philippines. I went there because there were 8 Jewish soldiers in the jungle in the Philippines. They were at the time conducting training against counterinsurgency to terrorists moving into the Filipino area. And their special forces were reacting to it. So they were engaged. And we were helping train them, supply them, doing things like that. Fast forward, it's after Pesach. It was a very, very productive Pesach in the Philippines. I get back to the States, and I need to give a briefing to, it was 2-1 Ghost Brigade. It's a Stryker Brigade combat team. So while we're out there, I was speaking to them at Fort Lewis, and I get a call from a first sergeant. The rank system of a first sergeant, he's an NCO, a non-commissioned officer. This first sergeant will have roughly about 100 and somewhere in between 150 and 200 people under him, soldiers under him. He gives me a call to go, and this ties into what we were speaking earlier. He told me that he needs me to go somewhere. I was the on-call chaplain at the time. So any emergency that happens on the installation, whether it be family related, whether it be suicide, whether it be medical, whether it be just general trauma or things like that. I have a work phone that anything that goes on the installation will go off on that phone. So it's 1800 at 6 p.m. I'm cooking dinner for my kids, and the phone rings, and this first sergeant says, "Hey, I need you to get to this and this location on the installation." I said, "Roger that, too easy." I tell my 6-year-old to continue to make dinner for everyone, and hop in my truck, go to where I'm told to go. And someone flags me down and brings me into a room and says, "All right, he's in there. I know as much as you do right now, which is nothing. I just know that I got a call and I was told to be somewhere. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know who's in there. All I hear is he's in there." I get told to, go meet so and so. I go into a room, and there's a refrigerator-sized individual sitting on a couch that is incredibly perturbed. He's red in the face. He's breathing heavy. He's just, you can tell he's disturbed. And long story short, I'm speaking to him, and he's being very aggressive verbally. He's being very aggressive and asking me all these interesting, pointed questions about Judaism, about Israel, about all types of things. And I noticed, it's like Rabbi Smith mentioned, I taught in yeshiva a number of years, so I can tell when someone's trying to push my buttons. And I understood that this guy was just trying to get under my skin. With that, I had no problem, because I said, "Hey, when I'm done with speaking to you and whatever you're doing, I go back home, finish making dinner, and everything's fine." For a number of years, I worked in South Florida as well. I'm currently on Hatzalah in South Florida. Whenever I get back home, I'm Unit 101. And whenever I'm there, they leave in front of my parents' house my radio, trauma bag, and things like that. Why I mention that is because on my first emergency, when I was working EMS in New York City, my partner, Shlomi Rimpler, we were going to an emergency, and I was traveling pretty quickly. I was driving an ambulance at the time, and Shlomo was the medic sitting next to me, and he taps my arm, and he said, "Michoel." And I say, "Yep." He said, "It's their emergency, not yours. Take it easy." And I was like, "All right." And I took that lesson, and I bring it with me whenever dealing with something that's very challenging, very stressful, very where there's high stakes. You don't want to get worked up, especially if it's their emergency. Don't make it your emergency. So like I said, I'm speaking to this person, and he's trying to poke and make difficulties and whatever. And after a while, I see he's calming down, and we're having normal dialogue. I obviously can't mention his name or exactly what we're speaking about, but after a while, he asked me if I could speak to him again tomorrow, because it was getting late. I was with him for close to 2 hours. He said, would it be okay to speak to you tomorrow? I said, "Let me speak to your company commander." His probably 3 echelons above him, but my peer on another 03, another captain. So I go over to his captain that I know because we were in the Philippines together. And I said, "John," I was like, "what was that? You just like tossed me in this room. I know nothing about it." He said he was having an issue being combative, fighting with those around him. We thought he was dangerous. We secluded him in a room, and we called our chaplain. So in the military, in the US military, every unit will have its own chaplain. So even though I'm a rabbi, I am the chaplain for 850 soldiers that are known as the Iron Rangers. Whether they're Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever it is, if they have a ethical, moral dilemma, I'm the person they come to. If they need to speak, I'm the person they come to. So they said, this company commander said, he called in their chaplain, and their chaplain was in the PT uniform, which is the physical training uniform. It's a black and yellow uniform. and it has no rank on it. As you see, it doesn't have a rank, and it doesn't have a symbol of the tablets and a Jewish star. And when that person's chaplain came in, he said, "You're not a chaplain. I don't want to speak to you. I don't know who you are." And he didn't speak to anyone. He said the whole day, he doesn't want to speak to anyone. He can't speak to anyone. And they said, one of our soldiers said, "Hey, call the rabbi. The rabbi could come in here in a bathing suit and he'll still know he's the rabbi. So you don't need the uniform or ID and things like that." So he said, "That's why we called you." I was like, "All right." I said, "Hey, John." He said, "He wants to speak to me tomorrow. Is that an issue?" It's like, "No, totally not. He can speak to you tomorrow." So I put it down in my agenda. I go back into the room with this guy who's no longer that upset, and he said, "Rabbi, can I have a hug?" I said, "Okay, sure, I'll give you a hug." Give him a hug, and I go home. I go to have dinner, and I get a call that evening from the first sergeant. He said, "Rabbi, you don't have to come and speak to that soldier tomorrow. He attacked someone in the barracks, and we sent him. The MPs took him away, and he's eventually going to go to the hospital for behavioral health or something like that." And I say, "Roger that." I take my pen, I scratch one thing off my to-do list for the following day, and that was it. The following morning, which is the next morning, maybe about 9 o'clock, I get a call from a lieutenant colonel that's in charge of the hospital. And he said, "Rabbi, I have a soldier here that needs to speak to you." I said, "Okay." I said, "Too easy." He said, we like you here now." So, "All right, roger that, sir. Too easy." I go to the hospital, and lo and behold, it's that same guy, Specialist so-and-so. We'll call him Specialist Jones. It's not his name, but Specialist Jones is sitting in a room, and I pop in, and he's a lot calmer than he was the day before, but he starts rambling, and he starts saying, "They were all wrong. They all lied. What do I do?" And I'm like, "But what are you talking about?" He said, I need to go to Israel. I need to be Jewish. What should I do?" And I said, "No, you don't need to go to Israel. You don't need to be Jewish. You're good as you are. We're chatting about the 7 Noahide laws, Shevus Mitzvahs B'nai Noachim." And he's like, no, they lied. You don't understand." And he pulls up his sleeve above his bicep. On the inside of his bicep, he has a swastika tattoo. And on his other arm, he has 88 for a German unit during the Second World War. And he said, "I grew up," he's like, "I'm a neo-Nazi." He said, "I grew up in Ohio in a very, very strong anti-Jewish environment, anti-Black, anti-minority." He said, "You are the first Jewish person I've ever met. And you are not like what they told me. They all must have lied. They lied to me. How do I change? How do I fix myself?" And in regards to his tattoos, there's a policy in the US military: if someone has a tattoo that they don't want or shouldn't have for EO reasons, equal opportunity or other reasons, the Army will actually pay to have it removed from them as long as they're staying in service. He went through this process, had them removed, and there was a lot more to the story, and it actually does keep going. And this individual is currently learning with a rabbi in the Chabad rabbi in California regularly, just to learn more. And what he's going to do with that and where he'll go, I'm not sure. Though the thing that struck me as we were speaking about, individuals seeing a swastika on a bus or on a bus station or whatnot, this soldier that I was speaking to, it was clearly, as you see, just out of ignorance. He was told something about a people that he never met, that he doesn't know. And whether we like it or not, as I tell my kids, when they're walking down the street or going somewhere, no one's saying, "Oh, that's a kid from 116 Infantry," or "That's a kid from 1st Armored Brigade Combat Team." I said, anyone who sees you is looking, that is a Jewish kid. That is a Jewish person. How do they act? What do they do? I did nothing special. I didn't try to win over this individual. I was just being a normal person speaking to him. And that normal interaction was something he wasn't, at first wasn't able to recognize. And then after I understood his pointed pushing buttons questions and things like that weren't there to get me upset, though, to see are these things real? Are these things true? Anyways, moving aside from that, because I didn't want to, that necessarily wasn't the direction we're going into, but we have, in regards to our previous parshas, as I was saying, of Vayetze, Vishlach, Vayeshev, that we see first we go out somewhere. We deploy ourselves wherever it is we go. After that, then those around us, we're able to send them. We're able to have others establish their areas and light up those areas. And then finally, once those areas are lit up, Vayeshev, we're able to settle. Things can be well. As of, looking at this small group here, I get to see all of you at one time. It's hard to move from box to box to box, but looking at the idea of, Vayishlach, of going out, you're doing something that you're lighting up Zoom. You're lighting up your environment. You could be telling your friends, hey, you want to learn something once a week or whenever it is, and then you're creating this spark, which hopefully should grow, and more individuals will be able to learn and benefit from what Rabbi Smith has to teach, what others are going to be able to bring out. But anyways, that was our tied in for there. Some interesting occurrences, and also I'd love to open up for any questions you have. We had a soldier. Anyone who ever served in the military in the United States is entitled to a burial with military honors if they were honorably discharged. I was in the field here, being in an infantry unit. You're in the field a lot. The field is where you go and train. There's targeting areas, there's ranges, and you live out in the field. It works out great because every Elul, when we learn about the idea of the king in the field, of Hashem being in the field with us, I usually end up being in the field. For the past 4 years, every single Elul, I find myself somewhere else in the field, either in the US or elsewhere. So it hits close to home of that idea of being in the field. When out there, whenever we're in the field with our soldiers, it's a great opportunity. And I received, before we deployed, I received an Army Commendation Medal due to being recognized by the division, the 1st ID, which is this patch here, the big red one, the 1st Infantry Division, recognized me by name for one reason or another, which was a great Kiddush Hashem, because there are very few of us in the military. I remember my grandfather, he volunteered shortly after Pearl Harbor and left. He volunteered for the Army Air Corps. And then when it split, I believe it was 1952, when he received the Rupture Dove, he stayed serving in the military until 1974, where he retired to Surfside. My father was drafted during the Vietnam War, and when he got out of the military, went down there also. And I remember when speaking to my dad or my father prior to joining, they both kind of laughed and said, "What? There are no rabbis in the Army." And apparently there weren't very many when they were. There are not too many now. So if any of you guys are interested, and Rabbi Smith will be able to get you up to par, we're needing a few good men, or a few good men or a few good women that would be able to help out and do that maybe. In short, though, we had the idea of, as saying, we're so few and we're very identifiable as being a rabbi in the Army, you do something positive, it has great repercussions around for other Jews in the military, just in general, that we're setting that name. So I said I received the Army Commendation Medal because I was so often in the field. Many chaplains, or some chaplains, if the field, like here in Fort Riley, you could drive home at night, many of them will, rotate during the day and then go back home. So the division recognized me for how often I've been with soldiers and training with soldiers, especially our medics. Since I'm an EMT, a wilderness EMT, I spend a lot of time with the medics in the field and training with them. So they wanted to award me for the amount of time I stayed in the field. Somehow or another, that email didn't make its mark and I didn't receive it. And I got a call while I was in the field from our S1, the personnel individual, and he said, "Where are you?" He used more colorful words, but I'll translate it as, "Where are you?" And I told him I was, I'm in the field. And he's like, "Do you understand that the brigade commander, the CG's chief of staff, and other individuals are waiting in the conference room because they're here to present you with the medal for how often you're in the field?" And I said, "Well, I'm in the field. It'll take me, a decent amount of time to get back." And later on that evening or the next day, my battalion commander saw me and he kind of slapped me on the back. He's like, "Rabbi," he's like, "that was perfect." I said, "Sir," he's like, "you had all these people that wanted to recognize how you go above and beyond to serve soldiers and be in difficult situations. They wanted to reward you for it, but you couldn't get it because you were because you were in the field." So it was kind of a joke around there. Unfortunately, or fortunately, there have been many jokes floating around here that we caused here at 1st Infantry Division. I got here and there was a new CG, Commanding General, which for those of you in the military that served, you understand. For those of you who weren't, a CG, a Commanding General, is what you read about in Baal Shem Tov stories of a putz, of a king, of royalty, of almost divine nature. Of what this person says, things happen. A 2-star general and a 2-star installation, whatever he says happens. He's the end all and say all. He's the highest court-martial level. I don't know how else I could explain. It's a king back in the olden days that can do whatever he wants to anyone at any point or time, and whatever happens on the installation, he makes happen or whatnot. One reason or another, he got to this installation and wanted to have lunch with me. Obviously, I have to bring my own food, and we met at the Demon DFAC, which is the dining facility here. And he has
this morning.
Sorry, his aides are there, and escorts and things like that. And I'm waiting. In the Army, there's a rule: 10 minutes early is on time. I've seen someone yelled at and made do different forms of exercise for being 8 minutes early, because that means they're 2 minutes late. So I'm obviously waiting there well before my 10 minutes early. His aides come in. We're sitting down at a table. It's just him and I and a scribe to record anything the general says or orders. That this scribe, who happens to be a friend of mine, Captain Furlich, can scribe anything or jot down anything the general says or needs to put into action. So before we start eating, I kind of warn the general. I say, "Sir, if you notice, I'll speak every once in a while before eating or drinking something. I'm not talking to my food. I'm saying a blessing." And he said, "Rabbi, flesh that out for me. Why do you say a blessing before you drink water, before you eat, different fruit?" And I explained to him how every single thing, how we have different blessings for different things, whether it's a shahakol, whether it's an adama, whether it's ha'etz, and tell him that everything has its own blessing, that we're, kind of pretty much asking God permission to consume this food, and that we should use the energy in this food to do good things. And he said, "Well," I said, "Rabbi, I'm going to ask you a dumb question. What if you don't say a blessing before you eat?" I said, "Sir, that would kind of be like me stealing food. I'd be like stealing. I didn't say a blessing over it." He pauses for a second. He said, Rabbi, are you calling me a thief? And I said, oh, no, no, sir. I was like, I did not say that. I said, you do what you do, General, I'll do. And unfortunately, that spread around pretty quickly around the installation. When I was at the next brigade level event, the brigade commander, who loves potato latkes, by the way, brigade commander that always comes to my Hanukkah party for, he's a full bird colonel, comes for potato latkes for him and his daughters. He was sitting at a meeting with the other battalion commanders. He's like, I don't know if you've heard it, guys, but your chaplain, called the CG a thief during their lunch meeting. And I was like, oh no. I was like, sir, permission to speak. He's like, no. He's like, no, Rabbi, you cannot speak. But anyways, it was kind of a long rolling joke that wherever we went, they're like, yep, that's the guy who called the CG a thief over lunch. But it was all in jest and good nature. And here in the military, yes, it's very, very, you don't see that many other Jews, and in South Florida or wherever you're tuning in from, there might be more Jews in your area or community, but wherever we are, our responsibility and our job is to do that. So rewinding to, as I mentioned, any soldier that gets discharged honorably, they're able to be buried with full military honors. I was in the field and I got a call of they said there's a soldier who passed away prior service. He was retired, and it said, and as you see on my tags, on our dog tags, it says our name, last name, first name, our DOD ID, our identification, our blood type, and it says Jewish on the bottom. This person who passed away was Jewish. And they said, Rabbi, it's about 5 hours from here where he's getting buried. You need to get down there. So I leave the field, I go home, clean up, put on my ASUs, my Army service uniform, which is my dress blue uniforms with all your shiny buttons, and I get a quick all I received was a name, Harold Cohen. It's the only thing I get. I didn't know what rank, I didn't know when he served, I didn't know if this was just happened in Afghanistan recently, or was it years ago. And I end up finding this Jewish soldier served in the Korean War, and he was actually very, very highly decorated. He was a chief warrant officer, and we were in the middle of a field on the border of Oklahoma and Kansas, and other than him, I was the only other Jew there. His wife wasn't Jewish. His children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren that were there were as well not Jewish. And different things, though, the wife made sure, she said he was proud to be Jewish. And she made sure to get him a coffin, a wooden coffin with the holes drilled in the bottom, that it was a simple pine wood box with the Magen David on the top. And she said, I need it to be done however is proper, whatever is meant to happen. And we say Kapitel, the Tehillim Tzaddik Aleph, we go around the place that he was going to be interred 7 times, saying the Tehillim. We made sure that afterwards that someone would be saying Kaddish for him. And as the custom that, a Jewish person is meant to bury a Jew. So we spoke about him for a little bit, and other family members spoke. I then was the only person there. They all left to go do whatever else they were doing. And for the next 4 hours, I spent there just myself and a shovel burying him. And it started raining, and I'm in my dress uniforms burying this soldier. And it just struck me. It was a very, very raw, simple, the idea of like a mes mitzvah or met mitzvah is known as a true mitzvah, because I'm not expecting ever to get anything back from this person. And the idea, maybe it was from one soldier to another, but just being able to sit there and do what we did for him felt very special. And we took our ride back. Now, fast forward, I'm back in my office. It's a few days later. and I get a call, and this part I have to mess with names as well. I get a call from, as Rabbi Smith mentioned, we run a wilderness program for yeshiva students, and one of my students that became a staff member, an adult leader in this program, calls me up and said, I have a roommate that's his brother's joining the army, and wants to know if you could help him out, that you could, you'll meet him, speak to him, whatever. And I said, there's close to 2 million people in the army. I'm not sure if I'm going to meet your friend's brother. He said, where is he? He said, oh, he's going to basic training, Fort Benning, Georgia. I said, all right, Fort Benning, Georgia. I'm in Fort Riley, Kansas. Let me know in a few months when they leave basic where they're going. Calls me up a few months later. My brother's going to Kansas. Now, there are two bases that he could go to in Kansas, could go to Riley or Leavenworth, but Riley makes more sense because it's an infantry division. He was in an infantry basic, would make sense coming here. So roger that, too easy. I said, you want me to give them your number? You want to give me his number, or the other way around? He said, oh, no. My brother doesn't want anything to do with Yiddishkeit. He would be very upset if he knew that I'm speaking to you right now. And he definitely would not appreciate a call from you, nor would you be getting a call from him if he had your number. I said, roger that. Said, don't worry about it. I could find your brother, because anyone who comes, like I just showed you, you have Jewish on your tags. I pull a query for the division, an Excel query of who is Jewish, and I have a list of all the soldiers here that are Jewish. Obviously, this person already made it to Riley, and I look up their name, and I can't find them. We're gonna call, just for fun, just to use a name, we're gonna call them, I don't know, Cohen also. So I look up this name that wasn't Cohen, but it was a very Jewish name, and I don't find them. I don't find them in the Jewish query, and all I have access to is the Jewish query. And I don't understand. I don't know why I'm not reaching them. I'm trying to find them, and I just can't find them. So I put it on the back burner. We have a whole bunch of other things to do. It's during COVID times, and there are 3 people that meet with the new soldiers when they come in. When there's about 40 to 60 soldiers coming into the unit, they'll put them all in an auditorium, depending on what COVID rules were of the time, and 3 people will speak to them. The BC, the battalion commander, the command sergeant major, the senior ranking NCO, non-commissioned officer, and myself. The 3 of us will go and introduce ourselves to all the new soldiers coming in. Now, of the time, like I said, it was in the middle of COVID early on, and so I'm wearing this. It's a neck gaiter, and that is my mask. So that's pretty much all you see. And so too, all the soldiers are pretty much all covered up. And I speak to them and let them know what I do as a chaplain for them and what different programs we have running for them, as well as being I'm also the OIC, the officer in charge of combatives for them, for hand-to-hand fighting for the unit. And I pulled down my neck gaiter. Said, by the way, I'm also the rabbi on the installation. If you know anyone that needs a rabbi, you know how to reach me. So now this, fast forward till the evening, I get a call, and it's that soldier. That soldier, the brother that we were trying to find, said, hey, I have a friend who's in trouble. Can I bring them to your office? Can they talk to you? And would it be okay if I come there too? I say, sure. They come to my office, and my office, there's a painting of rabbis. My wife's a painter, or not, she doesn't paint houses. She does art, as you'll see, like the ship that she made for me right over my shoulder, and some other things. So she painted a bunch of Hasidim dancing with a bottle of mashke in their hands, a bottle of alcohol. It's an old Simchas Torah. One of them's doing headstands. There are chickens running around. Rabbi Smith can probably show you what this picture looks like, because it's a very famous picture. She just copied it. This Jewish soldier comes into my office and sees that, and their face kind of drops a little bit. They see a tzedakah box on my desk with change nearby and says, can I? They see some Jewish books behind me and open on the table. And they had a completely different look on their face after the other soldier was dealt with. That soldier, the Jewish soldier, remained, and it was just over a year ago, around the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur time, that I'm sitting with the soldier in my office, and I asked them. I said, I was looking for you, and I wasn't, I didn't see your name pop up on the Jewish query. I know everyone here that's Jewish on the installation, and the soldier pulls out their tags and said, I put on no religious preference, and I said, why is that? Said, I didn't want to stick out. I think we've all heard that before. I know my grandfather, whose last name was Parlevsky, but while his service in the military, changed his last name to Parker. And when my dad was in the army, my grandfather was saying, why don't you change your name to Harris or something American sounding? Harari's not American sounding. But my father had none of it, as you can tell. So this soldier said, I didn't want to stick out. And I said, all right, I hear you. I told this soldier, I said, 2 weeks ago, I had to bury someone. And the only reason why I was there was because it had Jewish on their tags. When they served, they were listed as Jewish. I said, you can do whatever you like. I said, but God forbid, if anything happens, if you're injured, if you're hurt, or lo aleinu, or you pass away, if there says Jewish on your tags, I'll be there. And if I won't be there, someone like me will be there. But if you have no religious preference, you're going to have Father Joe doing last rites and doing whatever he does because that's, you had no preference. When I told this to the soldier, their face turned white. And they said, what? I said, yeah, you put down no preference and all bets are off. I said, can I fix this? I said, too easy. We get up. Now, keep in mind, this soldier, I know their family. I know their parents. I knew their grandparents. They went to the same yeshivas that I went to, where we have the same friends. We lived down the road from each other in different areas, whether it be Montreal or Crown Heights or California. I don't want to put a pinpoint on this, but we walk into the S1 shop, and I tell the NCO I see there, I say, we need to change this person's listing to Jewish. They said, are you confirming that they're Jewish? And I said, yes, I know them, their parents, their grandparents. Person's Jewish. You can change it. And that person then later came back to the office, and like I said, it was around Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur time. They asked for lekach. They asked for honey cake, and we gave it to them. And they came for Yom Kippur, and they davened Yom Kippur, and they had to go straight back to the field. Shortly thereafter, they came over once or twice. They came over for Sukkot to bench lulav. After that, they would come over a number of times for Shabbat here or there. After they came by the office, and like I said, this is a year ago. After they came by and asked if I can help arrange that they can get kosher food, that they don't have to eat in the DFAC, the dining facility, where the food is definitely not kosher. And we did, and the person is now keeping kosher. And now fast forward, I just deployed with a soldier. And it was a very, very difficult situation, where our unit was and what we were doing, which I can't go into detail, but what we were doing and where we were was very, very hard to get anywhere. And I had one soldier that needed to daven Yisker because he lost his father this year. And I didn't have a Sefer Torah, and I didn't have a minyan. So I worked it out with the Chabad Shliach in Bucharest, Romania, which was the relative proximity of where we were having flights going and coming to and things like that. We were able to get soldiers from 3 different countries to merge there to arrange lodging for them and to have a full Yom Kippur. This soldier that we were just talking about was on the fence, wasn't sure if they were going to be able to go, if they were able to leave what they were doing, and on Erev Yom Kippur, in the morning, early morning, 05, I get a text, and I realize I could look at it right now. So I can give it to you as accurate as possible. So at 5 in the morning, Erev Yom Kippur, I get a text because, like I said, the soldier was on the fence. Could they go? What about their other soldiers? You know, are they going to be able to leave? What's going to happen? And at that morning, when the person is deciding whether they're going, whether not, whether they should, said, Rabbi, I want to go. I need to go. Said, too easy. I was driving somewhere not far from Romania at the time. When I say not far, just under 6 hours. I drove there, pick up 2 soldiers, turned around, drove straight to Bucharest, got there with about 5 minutes to spare before the Ta'anit started, before Yom Tov started. I made sure that they had food, but I obviously was driving. I wasn't able to, so my Yom Kippur this past year was a fast for 2 days instead of 1, but it never ever felt easier in my life to fast on Yom Kippur than this year. We had a whole group of soldiers sitting across the aisle, most of which never really had Yom Kippur. As soon as Yom Kippur was over, and this was by my commander, he said, because in the past, we're able to get them there, and sometimes they'll leave after Kol Nidre. We'll fly them back, we'll get them back to whatever countries or whatever they're doing. When I spoke to my commander, I said, sir, Yom Tov ends at this time. Do you need them to get back before Yom Tov's earlier, before Yom Tov's over? And he said, no. He said, I want them to be there, to be praying and doing everything they're doing until after the holiday. And only then you bring them straight back. And they were in the middle of a gunnery section. So we broke the fast. I drove straight 6 hours immediately after Yom Kippur. While we were driving, they're putting on their stuff, their gear, their plates, their helmets, everything. I had to cross a live fire area, which is the range only has one road that when you're shooting, you can't drive on this road because it's an impact area. I drove to the impact area, called up the tower, said, we need to cross the road. They made all the tanks, everyone stopped shooting. I, as quickly as I could, dropped them off in their tanks, in their Bradley fighting vehicles, turned around. The range was only cold for 11 minutes. And then they started shooting again. And I had to drive back as soon as done, drove straight back to Chabad of Bucharest to get the rest of the soldiers that needed to go to Bulgaria and other surrounding countries. But all in all, wherever we are, like I said, I see we're running low on time. Just realize, especially on Hanukkah, that you're that light, that whatever it is, you're lighting up the area around you. And you always have to be going up from where you were the day before, helping those around you, and always increasing. I don't know if we do have time, but if anyone had any questions or anything they would like to know or anything of the sort, I defer to Rabbi Smith if we do have time for that, if anyone has any.
I understand how you and why you went into the military after your grandfather and your father. Why did you pick Army?
All right, so the question was, why Army? Initially, don't tell anyone in the Army this. Initially, I was going to go Navy. I was going to go to the Navy because for numerous reasons, but I'm from South Florida. I'm a beach bum. I like the water. I love to scuba dive. I like to sail. I like to fish. So that's where I wanted to go initially. I was at the Pentagon twice for the boards, and having a beard in the Navy at that point in 2014 was a complete no-go. And they weren't able to say it. And I could say this because I'm in the Army and I have no one in the Navy above my head or holding anything over me, but everything worked out. And at one of the boards, I'm sitting in the Pentagon with a number of colonels, lieutenant colonels, and high-ranking individuals that said, all right, everything's good. We see that you would be great for us. we need you to shave. And I said, no, respectfully. I didn't say no. I said, sir, due to this, that, and the other, that's a no-go. I'm not able to do that. And the next person said, we'll give you a direct commission right now to the Navy as an officer. You'll need to shave, and then we'll let you grow back your beard after. And I said, you're not hearing me, guys. So initially I was going to go Navy, and I asked Rabbi Dresden of the Aleph Institute. I said, is this something you want me to fight? Because Rabbi Mendy Stern, he was the first active duty service member to come into the military with a beard, active duty. And he did that in 2011 or 2012. I took note of that, and I wanted to see, is it a fluke? Is it real? So after a couple years, I made my advance towards the Navy. Didn't work out. So Rabbi Dresden told me, and many of my friends told me, you love to also climb mountains and be in the field and cross rivers and your field. That's where you are. He said, that's where the Army is. The Army's in difficult places. He said, you'll fit like a glove in the Army. So I said, all right, Roger that. Within a month.
You got your ecclesiastical certification through Aleph?
Roger. So I got it through Aleph. And when I went to the Army, it was a very, very quick process, even though I was the second active duty service member to join any branch of the military with a beard. The third was active duty in the Air Force. That's Levi Pakar, who was, I think, in LA now. And then the Navy just got theirs. However, the Navy's still reluctant to allow anyone with a beard on a ship. So he's not able to go anywhere as of right now. But he's, so in regard to the Army, though, it would be proper because my father was in the Army, my grandfather was in the Army, and I'm currently, if I were to have to do it all over again, I would have won Army first prior to.
How did you come up with the slogan "Too Easy"?
That is a Army. It's an Army jargon, kind of, that anything that you're asked to do by your commander, your only response other than yes, sir, can be too easy. Whatever, and it's a nice thing for our own service of Hashem. When we serve God, then we look at something, whether davening or learning or approaching a Yom Tov or something like that, we never should look at it as a challenge. Our response should either be to our commander, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yes, sir, but with that, it should come too easy. No matter what it is, it's kind of stuck. My kids are stuck on it also. Whenever I ask them to clean their room, it's too easy, Abba.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Harari. This was really a real bonus, very special program. And I know it's people have to light menorah soon, so it's not a time that we want to go on too long, but maybe if there's one more question, is there anyone else that wanted to ask anything or say anything? Okay, well, I guess we'll close here. Thank you so much.
Maybe he can return soon.
All right,
Right.
B'ezrat Hashem. So yes, it was absolutely my pleasure. And Ms. Resnick, that
Wonderful
B'ezrat
speaker.
Hashem.
You're a wonderful speaker, and we're lucky to have you
Thank you so
in
much.
every way. In every way.
May I know also your first name?
Michal.
Rabbi Michal.
Michael.
Michael, because I know a number of people in Brooklyn who have the last name Harari.
So my parents are, my dad, I mean, they lived in Brooklyn. We have a large, my father's originally from Egypt. When he was drafted into the Army, he wasn't even a citizen yet. He was only here for 6 months. But around the Flatbush area, around Avenue, somewhere in between Avenue S, Avenue I, so the Hararis, the Marcuses, the Bengigis, the Ovadias, we have a large family in that area in Flatbush.
Yes, I know some of them. Thank you very, very much. It was very, very edifying. And Yasher Kochecha.
All right, Hanukkah Sameach, everyone. Thank you so very much.
Hanukkah Sameach.
You too.
Hanukkah Sameach. Thank you.